Hello everyone, this is my infinite map. In this video I will attempt to explain how this exactly works. One thing that I do want to point out before diving into detail about how this works is how small the hammer maps actually are. So hammer is the tool used by mappers to create maps in Gmod, and the map size of these maps is actually very small. So you guys may notice this big kind of blue box. That is actually the normal hammer limit size of a map. A map is legitimately, it is impossible to go past this bounds normally in source. And unfortunately that is the hard-coded limit on how big a hammer map can be. So there's no way around this because of just how data management works in the source engine. Being able to edit the map size past this would require editing the entire source engine to allow. So just know that it's legitimately impossible to go past the hammer map size. Right, so let's get into exactly how this works. Now, the entire map is subdivided into something called chunks. You may be aware of chunks maybe by the game Minecraft. Chunks are basically just a way of managing data on a computer. So let me bring up a two-dimensional visualization real quick. It should be a little bit easier to visualize once I get this up. Okay, I have created a little kind of visualizations tool, two-dimensional, which should help a little bit with visualizing kind of what's going on here. So we've got the entire map. Imagine the black space is just empty space in the map, and we've got our blue back here, which is of course the edge of the map. It's pretty much impossible for anything to go kind of past this, so it's just like, I can't get past it because of the source bounds limit. So let's add in some lines. Okay, so now we have subdivided our map into a couple of chunks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different chunks. Now, we have our two players here that are kind of moving around, doing whatever. And then what happens is player 1 ends up moving outside of this chunk border here. And he just, I don't know, he moves over here to this part of the chunk, right? Well, what happens is he is actually warped back to wherever he was before. So we've got this little invisible guy here. Let's make him out. And what happens is this guy is actually teleported back to here. And this player doesn't see the teleport because we're only teleporting on the server. Now, the chunks will kind of subdivide this and add an offset to the rendering. So to this player, the box and the player right here are in this chunk here. So here, it's a little weird, but so this player right here is the original one, and he moves outside to this position, right? And he's teleported back to here. This player here turns invisible, and or he's not invisible, but he's been teleported back to here, right? Well, to this player, he would be able to see him warp back here. So we have to add code to avoid that. So instead, what we're doing is we're kind of warping him back on his perspective and keeping the rendering on this guy's perspective. So he sees him here, but he is actually here. Now, this what's happening here is now what we're basically doing is everything in the entire map is going to be located in this singular box right here. So let's say this box gets thrown outside and it gets like thrown outside of this chunk boundary. What happens is it gets warped back to here and turned invisible. And this player now sees the box here, even though the box is actually here. And it can physically Now, unfortunately, the problem with this is this box can physically interact with this player here, right? So what we do is there's a nice little hook or something called should collide, and we can say, hey, these two objects are not allowed to collide. So now they no longer collide. And to this player's perspective, the box is now here, even though it's right here. And this player, which looks like he's here, is actually here. So what happens now is what happens when this player moves outside of the chunk boundary. Well, so this player moves out here, and he gets teleported back up to this chunk here. And what happens is this player is now has to offset these two objects, which are also teleported. So since he moved down, these would move up. So kind of like this. And to this player's perspective, it looks like he's moved down a chunk, right? All of these objects, it looks like they've just moved down a chunk. But in reality, he's still in the same position with the illusion that these props here are in these other chunks. So that's kind of how that works on a two-dimensional scale. Of course, this can be applied to 3 dimensions, but you know, it's kind of whatever, man. You just apply that to 3 dimensions and you've pretty much got this map. There are a couple of more interesting problems though that come with making a map like this, and one of them is going to be oh, I see, hold on, it's kind of weird. Okay, why is it like that? What in the world? I'm just gonna set this to, okay, so here, screw it. I'm just gonna do this. That's still okay, I'm just gonna no collide it. That's weird. Anyways, so what happens is we have a problem where this is halfway between this and this. So what we do is we actually, all we do is we just duplicate it to the other side, like so. Make it invisible. And now, things in this chunk will collide. It'll look like they're colliding here, but they're actually just colliding on this invisible prop over here. If you kind of catch what I'm saying. So that's one of the problems that I've had to overcome. Another awful problem I had to recently solve was cross-chunk constraints. Oh my gosh, those are terrible. That's when you have a prop like this, and you go over here to a chunk boundary, and you have to like make it so it like goes through. Like you notice how it has to teleport back and forth to go through. That was a real pain. So you can like throw objects over the chunk boundary without any problem. Oh, I actually passed it like that. You can throw them over without any problem. That's pretty much how it works. I don't know how well of a job I did explaining it. I think it would be better if I had like better visuals, but I don't really know how to animate, so you know, it's whatever, man. That's pretty much it for this video. I'm gonna just keep trying to improve it and make it look as seamless as possible, even though technically we're never passing these chunk boundaries here, or we're never actually hitting the very end of the source map. And oh, another interesting thing that I forgot to mention is you're probably asking, oh, well, what happens if this player moves down to this chunk and then these objects are now rendered outside, like here? Well, the interesting thing is source can actually render outside of the skybox. As long as you force the object to render, then source doesn't really care where the object is in the world. So if it's past the skybox, even though the object is past the skybox, it'll still render it, which I thought was pretty interesting. So the visually, it looks like they're outside of the normal map bounds, but in reality, every object is still in here in this little square. Basically, even even though something is outside of the map bounds, it can still be rendered, but it won't actually physically interact. So no matter what you do, you can't put like a prop outside of the map bounds. It just won't work. But you can visually render it outside of the map bounds. Last thing that I want to mention is I'm actually doing one kind of hacky command. I'm not really sure how to fix this, so unfortunately the mod may have to force cheats to be enabled. I don't want to do that, but unfortunately I might have to. And it's because you see that box over there, right over there? I'm zooming into it. It's like very blue and stuff. Well, normally you would not be able to see that box. And it is because of something called the far clipping plane. And the far clipping plane is how far you can render stuff in a source map. So it's kind of this really, really big like square plane, and you can kind of see it right there on the blue box up there, where kind of what it's doing is it's clipping everything past a certain distance. Unfortunately, this command here, r_farz, is an svcheats one only command, so I'll have to somehow figure out how to edit that without enabling cheats. There is something called calc view, but I won't get into that right now. Anyways, that's basically it for this explanation video. I hope you kind of understood a little bit better about what's going on, and that it is pretty much 100% impossible to go past the source bounds. It's just not feasible without rewriting the entire engine. So this is a complex illusion with a lot of trickery going on in order to get the kind of, it feels like an infinite map, but it really isn't. Again, thanks for watching. I will see you hopefully in another video.